Hello everybody. Today I have a lot of tank maintenance to do, like this tank right here. I should have maintained it a while ago, but you know, when you have multiple tanks, some of them just get neglected longer than others. Pretty much all my tanks get neglected. My fish are all healthy though, so I don't think it's much of an issue, especially when you have a lot of plants. But algae has just taken over all of the stem plants in this tank. The stem plants need cut way back. A water change needs to be done because obviously if there's algae growing, it's because there's a lot of bacteria and nutrients in the water system. I don't have a filter on this tank, so obviously that's why. You just need to do more water changes until the tank kind of balances out. Add more plants, obviously. So let's get started. And when I'm finished with all my tank maintenance, I actually have 3 tanks to maintain today because I've just let stuff go for too long. I've been a little busy. I have 3 tanks to maintain, and then after that, I'm going to do a fish room tour. My husband helped me rearrange his office so I can fit even more fish tanks in there. Not that I need any more, but you know. So I will do a fish room tour when I'm finished with all the tank maintenance. Thank you guys for following along. So first off, I'm going to be doing a water change on this tank. I'll just get the water level down lower. I did a big 50% water change on this tank actually. I don't know, last week I think? Yeah, it would have had to have been last week. So it's not that like it really needs a water change, but with this much algae, probably could use it. And I'll just get some of this water taken out before cutting all those plants back. All of this algae, I don't know why it's growing on the stem plants and not the other plants, but I'm just gonna trim the stem plants way back. And then I think I'm gonna just go on Facebook and see if anyone has stem plant clippings that they're wanting to get rid of, and just add some more stem plants to this tank and see if that helps. I could add a filter to this tank, but I'm not planning on having a filter on here long term, so it would just be spending more money on something that's not permanent, you know? So I'd rather just do more water changes in the meantime until it gets itself cycled out. This tank was cycled well, and then all my snails in here died because of some assassin snails. They came in here and killed off all my little pest snails, and so I think it just added a lot of extra ammonia to the tank and it crashed. It's obviously getting back, like it looks better. I actually don't mind the look of all the algae in here, but I know the algae is going to die off and then it's going to look terrible, so I'm just getting ahead of all of that. You know, I don't really mind algae, but this much algae will create some issues in the long run. In this tank, I have some Bloody Mary Neocaridina shrimp, and I also have 2 male endlers and 1 female endler. Sadly, well, I bought 3 female endlers to have my purple endler breeding strain, right? And the 2 of the females died like the very day after I added them to this tank. So I did a 50% water change when that happened. And I don't know if it was my water parameters. I didn't test, I just did a big water change. But this female right here, as you can see, she never acted sick. The males never acted sick. They didn't seem affected by the water parameters, but you know, with this much algae, it probably did have something to do with my water parameters, which is sad. So I don't like being responsible for fish's death. So I'm hoping, she's looking pregnant. I'm really hoping she has babies soon. And something really exciting, I was going to have to create my own strain of purple endlers because my local fish store wasn't able to get any female purple endlers in. And he managed to get some breeding pairs in. So he sold me the 3 females. Sadly, 2 of them died, like I said earlier, but I still have this one, and she looks very healthy. The males aren't picking on her too much. They're actually picking on each other too much. They're always sparring. So, but they're not hurting each other, so I think they'll be fine being left together. But yeah, I just have those 3 fish. I did have Finley in this tank, but I removed him and put him in a 5.5 gallon tank because I didn't want him eating any of the Endler fry once some Endler fry was born. You know, it's already going to take me long enough to get my Endler numbers up to where they're supposed to be so I can start selling them, you know, without having a beta fish in here picking them off. So that's why I removed Finley from my little Endler tank. Now that I have some of the water out, I'm going to come in here. Sorry, I'm so tall. I have to stand on a chair because I'm so short. This tank isn't very tall, but anyhow, going to take out all of this duckweed. The duckweed has just been taken over by the algae. I'm going to plop it in this bucket down here that I used for the water change. There's so much hair algae in here. It is crazy. It's only affected the rotala in the tank and the duckweed for whatever reason. I don't know. Oh, well, would you look at that? I thought the rotala was actually starting to die off underneath all this hair algae, but it's not. It's actually thriving. So maybe I don't actually need these scissors after all. I'm just going to set that down and continue pulling all this out. And then I will add water back to the tank. We'll see if I actually do need to clip. I was thinking I'd have to just buy new stem plants for this tank, but hopefully I don't. That would be nice. And then when you add water into tanks with duckweed, they just get stuck. The duckweed goes down and gets stuck on plants. Duckweed is just a mess. You know, I love it and I hate it. I'm sure most aquarists could say that. Now that I have made just an absolute mess of this tank, I'm going to fill it back up with water. I'm going to let everything settle in this tank now, but because I removed most of the floaters from it, I'm going to go grab some water lettuce out of another tank and put it in here. Let's see if we can see. Oh, he's hiding. There he is. There's Monet. He's my, well, I guess he's not my newest beta fish. Finnegan actually is, but isn't he beautiful? He's my only import at the time, or for now. He's just gorgeous. Hi, Monet. Hi, buddy. All right, I'm gonna come over here to this 40-gallon tank. Hi, squid. Hi, buddy. My red pleco is, I guess, not busy. He's just stuck to the tank. Oh, there he is. He's working a little. I love his deep red coloration. I'm not sure why the camera won't focus. There we go. But anyhow, I'm going to come in here. There's a lot of duckweed, but also quite a bit of like baby water lettuce. So I'm just gonna grab some of this out. I'll grab this. That's okay if some duckweed comes with it. There we go. Looks beautiful. Hopefully the water lettuce really helps pull ammonia from the tank and all the nitrates and stuff out of the water. Obviously there's lots of other plants to help. And even after I finish cleaning, I'm starting to see some hair algae that I missed. I might need to do this again next week, probably. I'll probably do regular water changes on this tank for a few weeks, if not a month, but the plants still are looking good. I didn't have to trim back the rotala like I thought I would. The endlers are acting happy and healthy, so I think we're good for now. I'll come back around to this tank once everything settles and it looks much better. So the next tank that is needing some maintenance is this little 3-gallon that I have sitting over here on the floor. There are no fish living in it. There's just some snails in here. That's about it. But there's some algae in here, and A lot of the grass that I had planted in here, the dwarf hair grass, melted back, which is to be expected when you put it in a new tank, but it melted back and it's grown new starts. So I'm going to pull off the new starts from back here. Well, first I'm going to do a water change, but I'm going to pull off the new starts and plant them probably in the foreground. And then I'm going to add a stem plant back here in the back. Let me just scrape some algae off. Uh-oh, my bucket just tipped over. Oh well. There's a little bit of brown algae in here, but nothing serious. There's also a filter in here, and there's no fish in here, so that helps also. There's not a whole lot going on in this tank. There is, I guess, a little bit of hair algae mixed in with all this grass. Oh, don't want to take the snow out. There we go. Alright, that should be good enough as far as water changes go. I have a bit of an issue though. I can't see into the tank super well without the light on, but the light is on a lid, so I can't really reach into there. So I'm just going to have to pull the grass out, pull it apart. I'm going to just take off some of this duckweed. It's not looking super healthy. I'm guessing there's just not enough nutrients in the water to grow it, really. So I'm just going to pull it out so it's not in my way while I'm working and planting and stuff. I just love how cute and simple this tank is. I mean, it looks like a bit of a mess now, but I think I'll be able, when I'm finished with it, I think it will look a lot better. And this tank, I'm not maintaining it because it like needs a water change so bad or anything. There's not even really anything living in here, but I just think it looks cute and I want to make it look better. Just something fun to do. I've been putting it off for a while now. Alright, so there's all of these little pieces of grass. I'm going to just pull them up, plant them right here. I know I need to get some aquarium tools so badly. I have scissors, that's about it. I need to get some more. Lately I've just been using my hands to plant. That's what I've always done. Hopefully this looks nice. It's a little difficult to see. Here's the whole clump. This is the root system of the dead grass. I'm just going to pull out all the little baby starts from here and plant them somewhere else. I'm going to pull off more of this dead. There we go. And this grass should grow well in this tank because it was, it started in this tank, you know, so it shouldn't melt back after I plant it. It should just keep growing well. But we'll see what it does. I think that's mostly just dead roots. Throw that away. Now the water's so cloudy I can't really see in there. There we go. Here's a bunch of new start. Plant it right there. Sorry if you guys can't hardly see what I'm doing. This is a bit of a mess. Alright, I'm going to put the light back on and see what's going on in here. Okay, so I added some grass all right in here, and there's some growing over here that I'm just going to leave. Looks like there's some more back here that's up in the water column actually that I need to pull out. And There's a dead root system back there I should probably grab. And I still have some algae in here that I couldn't see. Did I get that scraped off? Alright, I took care of the dwarf hair grass. I have it planted all up here, and this tank right here is an example of sometimes things just have to get worse before they can get better. Don't worry, it'll clear up here pretty soon. I'm going to go, I have a fish bowl with a lot of guppy grass in it, and it really needs clipped. So I'm going to clip it and add it all back in the back, and I think it's going to look... Here's the fish bowl that I have. All this guppy grass is just way too long. There's a bunch of shrimp in here. You can see some of them. And the bowl looks like a mess, but it's thriving. It just has shrimp in here. It gets way too much light from the window. You can see the reflection. And that's why there's so much algae in there. Well, just brown algae. No hair algae or anything like that. Okay, I got my cup of guppy grass, and I'm going to start getting it planted. It's going to take me a bit, so I won't bore you guys with that process. I'll be back when it's all planted. So I got it planted, but there's so much mulm and waste floating around, you can't really see it. However, when I do the fish room tour here later, it should have cleared up a lot by then, and we'll be able to see it better. And now we need to move on to this tank. It is looking a little bit better, but there is so much mulm down here that it is killing all the plants off in the sand, like the short plants. You know, the taller plants are okay, but the short plants are all being killed off because the mulm is just coating them, and they're not able to like breathe and pull stuff in from the water, which is crazy. I've never had that happen. So I did a big water change on it a week or two ago, and I need to do another water change on it today. And I need to add more plants, but before I add more plants, I need to do a few water changes where I'm just sucking all that mulm out of there. Unless I feel like I got a good portion of it out today, but I don't think I can because I did a 50% water change recently and pulled out a bunch, but there's still a lot more to pull out. This tank is just home to my purple haze guppies. I had Rainy in here and a dwarf Corydoras, or pygmy Corydoras, and, well, I don't think they're a pygmy. I don't remember, but you guys have seen it in here. And it was just stirring up the mulm so much, which was why so much mulm was getting on the plants, actually. So I pulled it out, put it in my 40-gallon, and I put Rainy up here. Sorry about the glare. I was hoping to get this done early enough in the morning that there wouldn't be so much glare, but wasn't able to accomplish that. There she is. She's coming to say hi. I put her in here. I just have a couple of male endlers in here. That's it. There's no females, so there's no babies for her to eat. I know that my purple haze guppies have been having lots of babies, but I'm pretty sure Rainy's been eating all of them. I'm sure the parents eat some of them as well, but not all of them, that's for sure. Right, I'm gonna get started on getting the water pulled out, and because this is so close to the ground, it does take longer to vacuum this tank, but let's get all this sucked up. That is so satisfying to watch. There's so much mulm in here, it is insane. I added shrimp to here, but I'm wondering if Rainy ate them while she was living in here. You have to pull all of these dead plants out because they're just creating more mulm down at the bottom. I had added Java moss in here for the fry, and it all just died, sadly, because there's so much mulm. I'm gonna have to do very regular water changes on this tank until it balances back out and just the plants start thriving better. A mistake I made with these dirted tanks was I set them up and I just didn't add much fish to them, and thought because I didn't add a whole lot of fish to them, I would be fine and not have to do water changes. And that was not the case. If I had have added fertilizer for the plants, maybe, but because some of the plants melted off, I just, that was just not able to happen because they were dying, creating so much mold and waste to the tank. As you can see, I'm just making a mess. This tank is a pain because it sits so low to the ground. The siphon just doesn't have very good suction, I guess. And this is why a lot of the plants die off. It's not even suctioning. I make more of a mess trying to get it to suction. I should probably just buy a water pump for all my tanks that, you know, sit on the ground. Because I have a hard time getting water pulled out of here. It takes me so long to do like a 50% water change, which I won't be doing one today, but I am doing a water change, you know. And it gets clogged up so fast from so much waste that I'm pulling out of the water. Yeah, it's already clogged off. Get that out. So as you can see, so I've started doing frequent maintenance on this tank, but I did not do frequent maintenance on this tank before a couple weeks ago, and it really went downhill quickly. It used to look great. I'll put a clip of what it used to look like not that long ago, and then all the plants really started going downhill. And I think most of it is from all this mulm. I thought mulm was good to have in a tank, but not this much, especially when you have Corydoras, because they just would turn it up so badly. Thankfully I got them out of here. Which is looking, this 3-gallon next to this tank, I'm looking at it right now, and it looks like I'm going to have to do another water change on it because there's so much mulm sitting on the plants, and it's going to have the same effect. It's going to kill them off. So I'm going to have to do another water change, even though I just did a water change on it. And this is why I added gravel to some of my tanks. Oh, the guppies are trying to eat my fingers. This is why I added gravel on top of my sand in some of my tanks, because all that mulm has somewhere to accumulate instead of just going right back into the water column and, you know, doing this, right? However, when you have shrimp in the tank, they're not able to get in between that gravel and turn it over and, you know, reuse some of that uneaten food. Like, all the uneaten food will just fall into the rocks, and the fish and the snails can't, and shrimp can't get to it. But you don't have this happening if you have gravel. Oh, and would you look at that? There's a little snail that I hate. They're the assassin snails. And I've noticed in my tanks with the assassin snails in them, they all took a downturn. I did not realize how much the little tiny pest snails were maintaining my tanks for me. I am really thinking I need to get myself a water pump. If you guys have water pumps that you can just buy off Amazon, please drop a link down below and I will go check it out. Like, I have to change the water or dump the water out of my bucket on a regular basis before it's full, just so I can get more siphoned out, because this tank is so close to the ground. It's crazy. So much mulm. And I can't get it all pulled out because my siphon does not siphon it out hard enough. There's not a strong enough flow. Yeah, see, it's already getting all clogged up, which maybe a pump would get clogged up as well. I don't know. This tank is just a mess, and when I put water back in here, it's just, there's going to be mulm everywhere. This is crazy. Even the guppy grass, some of that was being killed off. You can see there's some right there, which is insane because guppy grass is like one of the strongest plants ever. At this point, you guys are probably wondering why I just don't put a filter on this tank. But I'm not sure if a sponge filter will pull all this out like it should. Like, I could try it. I would like to add a hang on the back filter to really just get all this stuff in the water pulled out, but it would suck up my guppy fry. So that's why I haven't done that yet. I probably should just get a sponge filter. I don't know. I'm just gonna do water changes every week on it, larger water changes every week, probably for about a month, and see what happens. If it's still like there's so much mold that I'm nowhere near even being able to add plants, I'm definitely going to add a filter. But part of the reason water changes are so hard is because it's sitting right on the ground. So, you know, if you're thinking about starting up a fish room, just be forewarned. You know, maybe make sure your tanks are up a little bit higher, like this one up here above it. You know, they can be lower to the ground, but right on the ground is just so difficult for water changes. So, you know, and I put this one, I knew it was difficult, but I put it on the ground thinking like, oh, it'll have enough plants, I won't have to do frequent water changes, and I don't do frequent water changes on most of my tanks, and they're thriving, but this one just did not work out that way, you know. Every tank is different, and it just didn't work out for this tank for whatever reason. I'm not sure what all went wrong. I know part of it was my snails being killed, which probably had a jump in ammonia, which probably, I don't know, some of the plants started dying and created all this mold. The fish were always healthy. I didn't lose any fish, so I'm not sure. Which guppies are very hardy fish as well, but still. Every tank is different, you know. What works for you may not work for someone else, or what works for me may not work for you. It's crazy, you know, the water parameters, if you're using tap water and stuff, where you live, the water parameters are just different. Certain plants are going to die off in your tank while they thrive in other people's tank. So you just have to learn what works for you. That's the beautiful thing about keeping aquariums. They're all so different and unique, and everyone has their own taste and things that they do different, and it's just super neat seeing that. So I've done about a 30% water change. I'm going to add some water back into the tank. This water's already been dechlorinated. I just add it right into these jugs because I don't use these jugs for drinking water. It's just for fish water. Probably going to make a bit of a mess. I'm going to add this cup in here to pour the water into to help break it. Let's see if that works. Oh, no, it's going way behind. Have to add it right here. There we go, that should work better. Putting this in also helps the mold from not going everywhere when you add in the water. There we go, much less of a mess. And I can't pour in all the water because this shelf is in the way. But that's alright. The water that's left in this jug, I just pour it into a tank, like my 40-gallon or something when I do a water change, since there's no shelf up above it, preventing me from being able to pour all the water out. And I've got another jug right here that's clear full that I can use, that's also dechlorinated. You know, for those of you who are thinking about getting tanks, this is what maintenance can look like on a weekly basis. Obviously, my goal for these tanks is to not be doing this every week. I would just be trimming plants and topping off water every week once this tank gets balanced out, you know. But yeah, if you like keeping aquariums, you won't view this as unpleasant. I'm not super fond of maintenance such as this, just because it's harder to get the water pulled out of the tank. But I don't mind doing maintenance on the other tanks. This tank is honestly the one that's the hardest to maintain. You can see, this is why duckweed is kind of a mess, because you pour the water in and it goes down into the water column and gets stuck on all these plants down in here and just makes the tank look like a mess, really. And I've tried those ring holders, or like, you know, the rings that you put in the top of the aquarium, right? That keep the duckweed out of that one circle, and then you can just pour water through that one circle, feed the fish, right? But they did not work. My snails would come up and they would get a hold of those rings and they would pull them down under the water because they're such fat snails. They're like nearite snails and mystery snails, you know, they're big snails, and they would pull them down. And so then it wasn't working at all. So I just took them out. There was no need to have them in there even. Ugh. Have I mentioned that duckweed is just a mess? So I've done a water change on this 20-gallon, and as you can see, there's so much waste in the water column. It needs to all sift down, which is then it lands on all these plants and kills them. So, you know, that's not good. And I accidentally messed up all these stem plants back here when I poured in water. I'm sure they'll bounce back. But yeah, there is less mulm than there was last week when I did a water change. I need to do another water change next week. But over here, see all of this mulm settling on these plants? I need to do another water change because that is exactly what kills your plants. I just planted all this new grass and it has so much mulm on it. The plants can't even like breathe. It just kills them. You're probably wondering why there's so much mulm in this tank. It's because all of the big grass clumps I had in here died off, creating a lot of mulm, which is what happened in here. A lot of the plants I added in here died. I added new ones. They died because of all the mulm, and it's just a mess, as you can see. It is a disaster. And the more I think about it, I think I will end up just adding a sponge filter to help me with this. But I'm going to have to buy one. So, yeah, I'll have to fit that into the budget. So I just did another water change on this 3-gallon right here. And it just put more mulm into the water column, which is then again landing right back onto these plants. And I pulled a considerable amount of mulm out when I did the water change, right? But it just stirs up, just putting the siphon in there and siphoning stuff out stirs up so much mulm. And there is a filter on this tank, and it's obviously not helping that much to pull all this out. So I'm wondering if the filter's going to help with this tank or not. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this dilemma that I have. And it's only these 2 tanks, which this tank wasn't an issue until today when I, you know, moved all this stuff around. But this tank has been an ongoing issue with the mulm that's in here. So let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I'm going to keep doing water changes. Should I add a filter to this tank? But then this tank up above, sorry about all the glow, and these tanks, they don't need filters at all. They're doing great. So I would just need to get, I guess, like probably a smaller air pump and put a sponge filter in there. I don't know. Do you guys think that would help or not? Obviously, it's not going to like pull all the mulm up out of the sand, but yeah. It took me so long to do tank maintenance since I was filming it that now it is too late in the morning to do a fish room tour because there's way too much sunlight reflecting off the tanks. So I'm going to come back this evening after it's dark and give you guys a fish room tour. By then the tank should be looking a lot better. The water should be a lot clearer. And you guys can take a look at all of my tanks and see how we rearrange the office and also plans for the future. All right, guys, now it is time for the tour of all my fish tanks. This fish bowl right here is 3.5 gallons, and this is in my room. I'm planning to get rid of it. I clipped back a lot of the stem plants and put them into a different tank. Before I get rid of it, I'll probably take off the pothos and this driftwood here in the center with the Nubius growing on it. For now, there's just some Bloody Mary shrimp living in here. Here's one. There was a lot of them in here, and I took about 17 out and put them in my 40-gallon tank. So there is less in here now. And here is my 6.5-gallon cube. I have some wild shrimp in here and my blue koi beta, who's named Monet. He's coming up to say hi. I think he's beautiful. Because it's dark, it's evening time, you can't see him very well, and then all of this duckweed that's dying off is also shading the front part of this tank, so you can't see him very well. Sorry about that. But yeah, this tank is doing well. It did have a lot of algae in it, but it's doing better. I love the look of the black shrimp in here up against the green. I think they look so cool. Here, you can see this guy better if I zoom in. I think they look pretty awesome. And now onto the 10-gallon tank that I maintained this morning. It is looking much better. The water looks so much clearer. I got a lot of the algae pulled out. There's still some algae, and there is some mold covering the plants, but not too much. And like I said earlier, this is where my purple haze guppies live. I also have some Bloody Mary shrimp in here. There's another endler. I think these endlers are just beautiful. I'm loving the look of the purple endlers. But yeah, that is the 6.5-gallon and 10-gallon. These are out in my living room. Well, one tank is dim and one tank is bright, even though it's like the same light over the top. Probably because I pulled all the duckweed out of this tank. And now my little tank, oh, there it's clear. There we go. This is a 2.5-gallon tank, and it is Marble's home. The angle of the light makes it kind of difficult to look into. Let's see. Oh, here's Marble. Hey, buddy. He's doing very well in this tank. He's just doing well overall, you know. He has a swimming disability because his spine has too much of a curvature to it. But he does well. He's friendly. He likes to come out and say hi. The glass is due for another scraping. I probably should have done all that before doing a tank tour, but oh well. Hi, Betty. He likes flaring at me and coming and saying hello. But yeah, overall, he's doing really well. This tank is a great size for him, and all the stem plants for him to lay in really help. There's Rotala in here and duckweed and some dwarf sage, and then the little piece of driftwood and some tannins in here. And moving on, we have this 3.5-gallon fish bowl. I wanted to create a bowl that just looked like nature, and I think it looks pretty nice. Except for all this algae growing. This algae, there's just too much natural light coming in from the windows here. It's by my front door. And it's hard to scrape it off because it's round. You know, I can't just get like a metal scraper out and scrape it. There's a lot of Bloody Mary Neocaridina shrimp in here. And there's a rock back here, if you can see it, with some Bucephalandra glued to it and a bunch of moss glued to it. The moss is doing great. There's a bunch of guppy grass back here. And there is some pothos growing on this piece of driftwood. And there's some Anubias glued to the driftwood as well. And overall, this bowl is super random. I think I'm going to get rid of it. Obviously, I will save most of the plants from it. Definitely this piece of driftwood and the pothos, the bamboo, the boulder with the plants glued to it, all that, you know. I'll probably just get rid of the bowl itself. I'm just not a fan of it. You know, it's hard to keep the algae off, and I don't really have anywhere else to put it. You know, I could try to make it work, but these bowls are just, as cool as they look, they're a little harder to keep the algae off the glass because you can only use like a toothbrush or something to get in there and scrape it off. And if it's a more stubborn type of algae, it's really hard to scrub off. And the lighting, I just haven't found super good lighting for bowls either. Like, I feel like these bowls are difficult to look into and see into very well because of the light I have, but I haven't really found anything that like worked better, you know? So I think I'm just gonna stick with my other tanks. I don't know. I mean, these bowls are only $12 at Walmart, so if I decide I want another one in the future, one that's not close to any natural light and I can find a better light for it, you know, I might get another one because they do look pretty cool. Now moving into my fish room. This was my husband's office. Well, it still is, but we moved his desk over here by the window so I can fit in more tanks. And I bought 2 tanks. I need to buy another one before the sale ends at Petco. So over here, this is the door. You come in here. This is a 40-gallon. I need to buy a stand like this one and put this 40-gallon tank on top. And then there's a 29-gallon right here inside the 40-gallon. And that will come over here on this fish tank rack that my axolotl is on currently. And then this 20-gallon will come over here and be on this top rack. And then those 2 5.5s will be taken down and put right here. And they'll all be put like oblong, like you'll be looking into them from the side instead of from the front, you know? But yeah, those are my plans for the fish room. It'll take a few months to have it all finished for in here. This is my 40-gallon. You can't see into it super well because the tank light has dimmed. I love this light. It is the coolest. I have it on the 24/7 setting, so it is on for over 12 hours a day. And as you can see, there's hardly no algae. The plants are doing great, and it's dim right now because it's dark outside, and it will continue to get dimmer and dimmer until it just shuts off. The plants are doing great. Look at this. My sword plant that's down here is like growing up out of the water. I've not ever had that happen before. The goldfish is thriving. His name is Squid. I have some neon tetras and one lone baby guppy that somehow got in the net with the neon tetras when I was catching them. And I also have a Corridora catfish. And I also have a red, oh, sorry, my mind is drawing blanks because I'm tired. A red pleco, that's what they're called. I have a red pleco in here. I have Bloody Mary shrimp. You can see some of them back in here. If you guys can't tell, I really like the Bloody Mary shrimp. They're so much redder and more vibrant than the cherry shrimp. I think they're great. But yes, I definitely love my Hygger light. It is great. Definitely doing a good job at keeping my plants alive, but not too much algae in the tank. Also, the plants are doing so well, probably not only because of the lighting, but because of the best fertilizer that I don't even pay for, and that is goldfish poop. You just cannot get better fertilizer than goldfish poop. Oh, Squid. Now moving down to this little 5.5-gallon tank that is sitting, well, let me zoom this out a bit, sitting below the 40-gallon. Skipper, the betta fish, is living in here. And I had orange really shrimp in here, but I'm not seeing them. I haven't seen them for weeks, so I think he probably ate them, sadly. Like I said earlier, I'm wanting to add 2 more tanks, 2 more 5.5-gallon tanks to the shelf. I already have them. They're over here on this rack, right up there. I will move them over to here and get them set up as shrimp tanks, but probably wait to set them up, or probably wait to add the shrimp to them until the betta fish pass away, so that might be a while because they just eat them. Or unless a different tank opens up for me to put the betta fish in. I do have shrimp in all 3 of these tanks, well, except for this one, I think they got 8. I have blue shrimp in one tank, and I have red shrimp in another, and I want to have orange shrimp in this, and I thought that would look cool. But yeah, I'm going to rescape the 5.5s and then line them up. I'm going to make it to where you can look into them easily from the side, so it looks nice to look at. And I'll be replacing all the sand and gravel with just white sand, so it will look much nicer. And I'll be pulling a lot of the plants out because they're heavily planted right now, which would make it hard to look into from the side. So I'm going to take some of the plants out and just add them to other tanks. And moving on to my axolotl tank, Squishy's tank. Hi, Squishy. She's doing pretty well in here. However, I am wanting to move her into a 40-gallon like I had said in a previous video, and she will be going right here in this 40-gallon once it gets up on a stand and is all set up. It'll be a ways out, but I want to make an epic axolotl tank for her. I think it's going to be so cool, and it's going to be much heavier planted, and it's going to have sand in it as well. I got some sugar sand, which is kind of expensive, but it's very fine sand. So even if she did accidentally swallow some of it, she should be able to digest it easily, and it shouldn't cause any issues with her digestive system. I was kind of nervous to add sand to her tank, but I did a little more research and decided that if it's super fine sand, I shouldn't have anything to worry about. And I'm not sure if I would get her another axolotl friend once I add her into a 40-gallon. You know, she produces quite a bit of waste in this tank. I think it would be a lot easier to keep clean if there was sand all along the bottom, because I don't like scrape the glass or anything. So a lot of brown algae is here on the glass. I'm not sure why my phone's being blurry. There we go. There's just a lot of algae in here on the bottom of the glass. It doesn't look very clean or pretty. I think it will look much better with sand, and I think I'm going to either do root tabs or aqua soil underneath the sand. I'm trying to decide. I don't want her to move the sand around enough where the aqua soil shows and then for her to like eat it or something, but if I have it capped pretty heavily, that shouldn't be an issue. So I don't know. I can't decide. And then some of the plants obviously will be feeding from the water column, like all the Java fern and Anubias. So maybe where I have the plants that will feed from the bottom, I could just add some root tabs, like a one-time thing, you know, and then the soil after that should have enough nutrients in it to feed the plants. But I don't know. As it gets closer, I'll make that decision. For now, she's doing well in the 20-gallon. I just have to do like 50% water changes on a weekly basis. Moving over to this little aquarium that I cleaned this morning. There's so much mold all over all of the plants, as you can see. It is crazy. I'm really hoping that that doesn't kill them. I already did 2 water changes on it today, and there's still this much mold in it, so I'm just gonna let it be. I planted some dwarf hair grass up here in the front. This is a banana plant over here. And then here in the back I have guppy grass. And guppy grass is really hardy and it will take over your tank very quickly. I'm hoping that's what it does. I would love to just have a wall of green in the back and then shorter green plants in the front and this rock. I just think it would look very cute. And now moving over here, the last of my tanks on my fish tank rack. This is the 20-gallon that I cleaned this morning. I would like to add a lot more plants to it, so when I break down the 5.5s and take some of the plants out, I want to add them to this tank. But first, I want to get the mulm situation a little more under control so that the plants have a better chance at surviving. As you can see, I did get quite a bit of the mulm pulled out this morning. You can actually like see the black sand. But yeah, this rotala over here is dying off. I have a crypt there behind it that is, you know, surviving, but it's not thriving. I do have aqua soil underneath this black sand, so hopefully the crypt kind of picks up. I only have purple haze guppies in here, and 2 of the females are very heavily pregnant, so hopefully I have a bunch of fry in here soon. That would be exciting. I had purple haze guppy fry, and then they just disappeared. So I think Rainy, my betta fish, ate them. So I took her out of there, and I put her in here. Sorry about the glare, guys. There she is. She's a female betta. She's quite happy in here. There's so much duckweed in here that this tank is like kind of dark. You know, I painted the back of that tank black, but look at the difference of like reflection. It is crazy. Like, it reflects so much worse. Now, if I had more plants in the background, there would be less reflection from the back of the tank, obviously, and that is my plan. I do plan to add more plants to this tank now that I can add some stem plants in here now that there's no goldfish in here. This was my goldfish tank, and if you remember, there was a lot of algae on these plants, and now there is none. And this tank is thriving. There's no filter in here. It is a dirted tank. The duckweed is going crazy. Some of the duckweed up in the front of the tank that's getting less light is starting to die off. But the duckweed underneath the light is just thriving. But I do need to remove a lot of it out of here. And then these plants can get a little bit more light. Yeah, I have 2 male endlers in here. And I plan to add some common female endlers to here. And this will be like my common endler breeding tank. But until then, Rainy will just hang out in here with the male endlers. She's so dark, I'm having a hard time showing you guys her colors, but she's a very dark blue. She's beautiful, but she's very hard to video or photograph. And up above is the top rack. I have 2 5.5 gallons. I have betta fish in them. Here's Finnegan. I got him not that long ago. I think he's just beautiful. He's a Dumbo betta. I'm typically not fond of Dumbo betta fish, but he was purple, and purple's like my favorite color. You guys, if you know anything about me by now, it's that I do not pass up purple fish. So, obviously I had to get him. He's just gorgeous. Hi, Betty. He's not as friendly as some of my betta fish. I'm kind of surprised that he's up close to the glass while I'm filming him. But yeah, he's happy in this 5.5 gallon tank, and I have some blue shrimp in here. And over here is where Finley lives. I moved him from his 10-gallon home to this home. He doesn't seem to mind. He seems happy with his living situation. And I have some Bloody Mary Neocaridina shrimp in here. I also have several bladder snails, and I have some nearite snails. There's a shrimp. I just love having shrimp in my fish tanks. They're so amazing. They help with the ecosystem, and they're also just fascinating to watch. They're hardy, they breed like crazy. Shrimp are definitely one of my favorite things to keep in a fish tank, along with snails. And of course, betta fish. I love keeping betta fish. Hey, Finley. Hey, Betty. He's still beautiful, even after his fins got all torn up. They've healed in nicely, but, you know, they're still scarred. Under the right lighting, he is just such a vibrant blue. He's getting a little older. That's starting to show. This was actually my first dirted tank that I set up since getting back into dirted tanks. I set up like a dirted Wallstad tank, I don't know, 3 years ago maybe, and I did not do it properly. I just put like aquarium gravel over potting soil, and maybe that's what the Wallstad method is. I don't think it is. I haven't looked into it a ton. But then I started watching MD fish tanks, and he was capping it with sand, and he was using aqua soil, which is way less messy. And I was like, you know, I'm going to give that a try. So I tried that with this tank, the very first. And this tank, funny enough, has actually been one of the easiest tanks. I did aqua soil, capped that with sand, capped that with gravel. And I did a few water changes, and then I was done. I didn't do any water changes after that. And it was so easy. And so I was like, okay, I'm switching all my tanks over to dirted tanks. And some of them, like this one right here, have been very easy. And some of them, like this tank down here, have been a lot more difficult. I've had to learn a lot more, which just goes to show that every tank is just so different. But overall, I've loved having dirted tanks. I definitely recommend. I do not use CO2 or fertilizers or anything, and I still get good growth out of most of my plants. Most plants do very well in my tanks. Obviously, there's some tanks that just don't do well in general, and I'm figuring that out. But I don't think it's because they're dirted tanks. I think it's something else. I just got to do more maintenance on them. They're a little higher maintenance for now. Hi, Finnegan. He's just being friendly tonight. Let's see if my camera will be clear. There we go. Hey, buddy. Thank thank you guys so much for watching this very long video. If you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. I have some fun projects coming up, some fun tank builds, and I post fish-related content multiple times a week.